didn't know you were in the intro.
Oh, I thought you was gonna hesitate, so I just took charge. Like the dominating Aries. That
Sweet.
can be sometimes.
It's your turn anyway.
I'll try to. Well, okay. Welcome back to another episode of Aries and Gems. This is Aries and Gems Book Club.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, I'm Gems.
and I'm Aries.
And today we're going to do a little book review discussion about 1984.
Yeah, that was our first book of the book club. Our own little book club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's by George Orwell, and we're going to come at it from the perspective of reading it as two people that are black and what
Yeah.
we thought.
Yeah, because at reading it, I read reviews about it before, about it was ahead of its time, and like it was at the time it was written, it was an unimaginable world
Mm.
that people couldn't imagine. But me reading it, like I've read it like years later as things have come to pass. But reading it, I'm thinking at the time as a black person, would that be out of the ordinary? The things that they were that the writer was writing about, because as the black experience was very different to your general white experience
Mm.
at that time. Like they wouldn't have been used to the sort of surveillance and Big Brother, the way
Yeah,
life
that
was.
control.
But for black people with slavery and colonialism, and at that time colonialism was still rife, slavery was maybe 100 years, yeah, maybe 100 years since it had been abolished, but colonialism was in full effect. And even the book is kind of about colonialism with Oceania,
Mm.
Eurasia, like trying to make like
Yeah.
kind of like things had been split into like I think it was like 4 or 5 places.
Yeah. There was like Africa,
Yeah,
Eurasia, East
yeah,
Asia, and then Oceania.
yeah. So yeah, so I was thinking from a perspective
Yeah,
of
it
a
came
black
out
person.
1949, so yeah.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't like, I'm wondering, would it have been as futuristic and as shocking as a black reader as it was to a white reader? Because when I was reading,
Mm.
I was thinking black people have been going through this.
Yeah.
And,
So if you imagine at that time, what we just like, um, the Second World War was like behind, people were thinking, oh, things can't get any worse.
yeah,
And often when we think of George Orwell, we think of like dystopian futures, like books like Animal Farm,
yeah,
where like this that twisted reality. But if you're already from somewhere where like you know your your life has been kind of subjected to hardships and being under surveillance and being like under prejudice, then you probably wouldn't be as shocked, I don't think, reading
yeah,
this.
yeah. Because yeah, a lot of the things that I was reading about, I mean, the concepts in the book,
Yeah.
like thought crimes, the Big Brother watching you 24/7, and what else was in there? What other stuff did they have? Double
They
think.
yeah, double think, as well as newspeak. So
Yeah,
newspeak was like a type of
yeah,
language that
yeah.
got more,
Because it's
yeah.
like, so the Big Brother, that would be the plantation. Like you're on the plantation. Your every move is watched. Your thought police and thought crimes. That's your original. That would be your original culture that they've stolen away from you.
Yeah, so if we dig into it a bit deeper, like thought crime could be like even just thinking of freedom,
Yeah,
even reading, even letting
yeah,
letting on that you're literate could be a thought crime.
yeah. Because they
Yeah.
did do things like that,
Mhm.
and that was the whole programming. Because even like where they you live in the present, the
Mhm.
past doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's why they erased the history, like of a lot of colonial. If you meet, even up to this day, if you meet like an African from a colonial country and you ask them about their history before
Mhm.
the colonialism, they couldn't tell you their history. They only
Yeah.
know their history from like a certain point after
Yeah.
they've got free from colonialism. You're like, what's your history before that? They don't know. Like our
Mm.
history starts in what, 1947 or whatever time
Mhm.
period that they do. And that was kind of when I was reading the book. It was
Mm.
kind of like when Winston was like, yeah, no one knows
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
past,
Yeah.
and it's just it was just like that. So it kept reminding me when I was reading. It kept reminding me, is he writing about the black experience? Even though he probably
Mm.
wasn't. I was just thinking he's just writing about the black experience. I need to
Yeah.
speak about this. Like, how do black people feel when they're reading 1984? Is it as futuristic to them, or is it just this is our reality already?
Mm.
So we were already doomed.
Yeah.
If they're like you're futuristically doomed if things
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
this way,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we was already in a sort of Big Brother system,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we was already doomed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I took from the book from reading it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I think often like when I was reading it, it just kind of like the sayings that keep getting repeated kind of just reminded me of just like how, especially now with things being so doom and gloom with like just everything that's going on with Ukraine, everything that's going on with like how expensive things are getting, and just general life right now is just, it kind of just made me think about like, okay, so you've got the couple of sayings. You've got war is peace, because you never really, so first of all in this book you're kind of not really convinced of who the enemy is,
yeah,
and that's something like in warfare, disguising who the enemy is and making it seem like, oh no, now we're fighting this person, and like, oh yeah, we're supposed to go to war because they've got weapons that we need to be get under control of. They've done this kind of threat to us, and they kind of create these reasons and this narrative over why we go to war for these peaceful reasons,
yeah,
and that just reminded me of something that we live through all the time.
yeah,
Yeah. So that kind of came up. And then another one of the sayings is freedom is slavery. Um,
yeah. And that's a saying that I found interesting, especially in the book when he said you can flip the words,
yeah,
and like so there are a lot of phrases that they put in society that have double meanings,
yeah,
and that's kind of how they operate the system.
mm-hmm.
Like the system is insidious in its nature,
Mm,
but they make it like it's good in nature.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they enslave you and then be like, yeah, this is the way that you're supposed to live.
mm,
And then if you're trying to get free, they make it out like you're crazy.
yeah,
So that's like freedom is slavery and slavery is freedom.
yeah.
That's
You
like how the
can't get
words
away.
can interchange. Like, yeah, I just liked how I think it was O'Brien towards the end was explaining how
Mm,
you can flip the words and it
mm,
mean the same thing and mean something different.
yeah,
Yeah, which I kind of liked, which was like the whole it's kind of what doublethink is all about.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Essentially,
and like that's like in society, like there's a lot of doublethink goes on, and that's how the media kind of like that's how they that's how the media functions
mm,
with doublethink. Yeah,
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 yeah. No, that's true.
yeah, to keep people confused.
Yeah. So when they talk about ignorance is strength, that kind of reminded me of the Newspeak language and how that's the only language in this book that is having less and less words introduced a
Yeah,
year, compared to other languages, and they see that as a badge of honor. The fact
yeah,
that this is reducing, um, and that you can express whole concepts and sentiments with just less words.
yeah,
And it kind of reminded me of like during lockdown, like in 2020, like a lot of people kept saying like is what it is,
yeah,
and that just came out of nowhere to just capture a moment and a feeling, and everyone kind of knew what you meant by that, and suddenly it was just becoming this like phrase. And that happens often where like you don't even need to really explain all your thoughts and do like us on this podcast talking about our opinions. You could just say it is what it is,
yeah,
and everyone knows what you
yeah.
mean.
And that's even the concept of Twitter. Because
Mm,
remember, quit Twitter. What that was like the training for us for like
yeah,
newspeak.
to reduce,
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's
down to
like you need to
characters.
be able to express yourself in 140 characters,
Yeah.
and then so now people are having like world-changing discussions over Twitter where you
Mm,
can only use 140 characters,
yeah.
and then these type of discussions then make the news, and then
Yeah.
it's like there's no middle ground. It's either you're on team one team or the other team. It's like there's
Mm,
no room for debate
yeah.
in the middle. It's just like you're either on this side or you're on this side, but you might be able to be both sides might have a point.
Yeah.
The Queen's recently passed, so um people have their opinions. So at
Yeah.
the moment there's like the people mourning the Queen,
Mm,
and then there's the people that don't want to mourn the queen because
Yeah.
of the colonial history that's associated with the queen. So some people have chosen this time to
Yeah.
bring up the indiscretions of the monarch.
Yeah.
There was a black news presenter that said they're not going to mourn the queen because so and so and so,
Mm-hmm.
and people have said, it's insensitive. Why bring it up now?
Mm.
But when is the right time to bring it up?
Yeah. When are you going to get that
Yeah,
platform and that
yeah,
conversation?
exactly. Because
Yeah.
the queen is the hot topic. That's what's trending.
Mm.
You've got to say what you think, and
Yeah.
and then they're calling for him to be sacked from his job
Mm.
because of what he said. It's racist. This
But
whatever.
what he's saying is echoing a lot of other people's
Yeah,
opinions,
so
and
that's
there should be a platform for
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So why should a person then lose their job
Mm.
because they have an opinion which people from his culture can resonate with,
Yeah.
and then they're calling for him to lose his job because of that tweet, and then the company that he works for
Mm.
has sided and said they don't support his views. We don't support that because they've got to kind of stick with the like
Status quo.
they've got to take a side.
Yeah, they do. And also, you have to remember that the monarchy, they also don't want to talk about this history.
Yeah,
So, they want to suppress it as well. So, it's important to just kind of bring up other sides. And that's what's
yeah,
so interesting about this morning and this time is that I'm noticing now when big things happen, it does cause more of a debate than like when I was younger and like I don't know, like a big scandal when I was younger, like I don't know, the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal when I was living in New York with Bill Clinton, like that was a big scandal. But I
yeah,
don't remember hearing so many
yeah,
different perspectives about it. Whereas
yeah,
now, when something big happens, it's like everyone's got their hot minute to
yeah,
talk about their take. Yeah.
yeah. But then there's a side that they make win. Like
Mm.
even though everyone can have their two pence,
Yeah.
there's a side that gets you cancelled, and a side
Yeah.
that makes you the hero, which still kind of controls the narrative of, okay, are you gonna be brave enough to say the truth, even if it's the
Yeah.
truth, and you know you might get cancelled, you know you might lose your job.
It's like
Are
everyone
you
has
brave
that
enough to say it? So
cancelable
yeah,
moment that's just potentially looming over them at
yeah,
all times. Like, what topic are you going to pounce on that's going to make it that someone's going to be like, oh, yeah, um, Cuba Gooding Jr., like, this is where he dropped off, and Johnny Depp, this is where he dropped off. And, like, in your mind, your perception of someone, they could just drop off at these
yeah,
different topics. So it's like everyone's got their day when they're
mm,
going to be dragged
yeah,
because you can't seem to stay quiet because everyone's always pushing you to talk. Silence isn't an option. So if
yeah,
I talk about everything and I give my perspective, then when I give the perspective that's not favorable or not palatable, then I'm cancelled
yeah,
or seen
yeah,
to have an issue.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's another. That's like the news. That's the news speak. That's the news speak coming into effect. Is like it's kind of training people to, you've got to get in line and say what we say. These are the consequences if you don't say what we want to say,
Yeah.
whether it's the truth or not. Because what the person said about the Queen was the truth,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you can still get cancelled for the truth. So
Yeah.
it means that the truth isn't what matters. It's what we want you to think. When the
Yeah.
Queen passes, we don't want you to bring up that the colonial past of the monarchy.
Mm.
We don't want you to bring up that she's got one of the richest diamonds in a crown stolen from Africa and
Yeah.
India. We don't want you to bring up these things. We don't want you to bring
Yeah.
up all the indiscretions.
Or that we're
So
going through a deficit right now and we're spending money on a funeral and a coronation
yeah,
to in billions,
yeah,
like when we're actually
yeah,
kind of in debt and in a recession.
yeah,
So there's that going on. But I think also maybe timing is everything in that like that kind of discussion could be something we kind of face towards our future king
yeah,
and making him do the change and
yeah,
making him what can he do about it instead of putting on this poor dead woman. Why are we putting all of this on her, on one person, where the monarchy lives on
yeah,
with
yeah,
other
exactly.
people?
The monarchy still
Yeah.
goes on. So like, because the Queen never apologized for slavery, and the Queen never apologized for colonialism. So
Mm.
if they have a right not to mourn if they don't want to mourn,
If the,
because
yeah.
she didn't apologize, so they don't need to apologize for not mourning,
Mm.
and they don't need to apologize for um, the insensitive time that they're bringing up the things that they done. But it's
Mm.
the hot topic at the moment. So
Yeah. Do you ever think that something like thought crime could have its use in our society? Because I have opinions on the fact that maybe it could be.
Um, no, because the truth is the truth, and the truth needs to be able to operate freely. Like the way a person thinks
Mm.
is the way that they think, and if it's acted out, then yeah. But you need to be able to understand people's thoughts.
But do you not
So
think that thoughts with enough repetition can lead to actions that could have been
what?
stopped?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't speak on because in reality you don't know someone's thoughts. You just see the act happen,
Mm.
and then it's after the fact maybe that you find out the thoughts, unless. But now, like with social media,
Mm.
so they've like one of the things about the book is how can we get into people's thoughts,
Yeah.
and social
So
media's kind of figured that out. It's like so
yeah.
they you wake up, log into social media. Oh, what are you thinking? You
Yeah. So
type it down. The algorithm collects what
yeah.
people are thinking, and then they correct people's thoughts. So it's like
Yeah.
okay, a lot of people think black people can't be racist. Okay, we need to correct this thought. We need to
Mm.
make it that black people can be racist. Or
Mm.
um, a lot of people are saying that the age of consent is too low. Okay,
Mm.
we need to kind of correct it, make it higher.
Mm.
Like they're getting people's thoughts and now correcting it.
Mm.
So if there's enough thoughts that's out there that can be corrected,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it is a good thing. That can
Yeah.
be a good thing in a sense. Like they're retraining people now on their thoughts on gay people, trans
Mm.
people,
Yeah.
their and like yeah, ages of consent. These are topics that come up on social media, which really are people's thoughts because you don't
Mm.
really hear those conversations out in the
Mm.
open.
So you see there being more of a marriage between like maybe the things you search on Google versus the ads that you get displayed. So for example, if you're searching around like, you know, where to live, trying to find a property, then you might be served with more ads to make you kind of like think, okay, well actually I never thought about this area, or maybe you're served ads about restaurants and things and activities going on in a certain area to kind of get you out of where you are to help you look for a house. Like, do you think it's going to be like that? Like shaping people's thoughts down a
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
path?
yeah. I
Okay.
think that's how they're gonna do it.
Mm.
Yeah, like so, like
Yeah.
that's
So
how
if you're
they.
looking for a new car in one app, it's going to be like, oh, like here's a dealership thing going on,
Yeah,
and here's a
yeah.
opening. Yeah.
Or
Okay.
just like, or even like a reward system for your
Mm.
thoughts. So the more you think about in the line of thinking of the so-called big brother in quotation marks,
Mm.
you get rewarded more. So
Mm.
when people start seeing, okay, people are being rewarded for saying, "Yay, trans women are men,"
Mm.
and more people's got to get in line with the
Mm-hmm.
thought process, even if it goes against like the common sense in your head. Like within the
Mm.
book where they were saying they was getting Winston to say 2 plus 2 is 5,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he knows it's 4.
Yeah, so that's a clear
But
giveaway. So if you were to say that or type it, you'll be
yeah,
rewarded somehow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's
so I
true.
think they're gonna have a reward system, like, and I think that's why corporations jump on board with every movement because they're like, we got to have all
Mm.
bases covered.
Yeah.
Like whatever movement it is, we've got to jump on board, and we've got to just because like where
Mm.
we need the rewards.
But sometimes I think they do that because of retention. I think if you're a company and, say like Black Summer happened and you didn't put your black squares, like, so the few employees we've got under our belt, they're going to be looking at us and thinking, oh, I don't want to work here anymore. So I think
Mm,
sometimes they jump on these things to kind of retain their staff and retain like their interest and
mm,
loyalty to them. So I don't think sometimes they're doing it for the outside publicity. I think sometimes they're doing it for their internal PR.
mm.
So when you look to their feed, they have represented you. It's like, oh look, you should feel comfortable here. You should feel seen and accepted. Um, so another thing that came up that I was thinking about was this idea about how early children are exposed to Big Brother within the book.
Mm,
And Winston does make a comment that like parents are scared of their kids. They're scared of how that their kids are most likely going to be the ones that rat them out,
mm,
and how like now with especially with technology. I know we talk about it a lot, but it's really just that exposure because it happens in schools. You know, teachers are sort of running the classroom with a lot more digital technology. Kids are becoming more savvy around technology. And it's this idea that, like, you don't always know who is even talking to you because someone can program a voice activated system to call you, tell you to do something, pretend to
Mm.
be my voice,
Yeah.
and tell you to put the oven on. You
Mm.
could think it's me saying, I'll be home in a second, just put the oven on.
Mm.
And next thing you know, now the oven's on, and you know, just anything could happen. And it's like the trust that children have in technology is scary.
Mm.
And I think when I read that about, you know, parents being scared of their kids, especially you know, of a certain age, because their kids will be younger. Like anyone 30 is like more scared of their kids. I just that really kind of resonated with me in terms of how I feel about, you know, children now,
Mm.
you know, and how close they are and how trusting they are of technology.
Yeah.
So yeah. Were there any characters that stood out for you or made you think more about the black experience or just in general about the book? And we're just
Yeah.
assuming everyone's read it. If you're listening to this, you've got to read it, like,
Yeah.
or watch the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Winston's the main character.
Yeah.
So he's like, because he's the rebel. So
Mm.
my personality is gonna relate to like the rebel, someone that sees like you're in something
Mm.
and you can see that something's wrong,
Mm.
but you don't know. But everyone's just acted normally within it, and you're like thinking to yourself, can anyone else
Mm.
see that
But
there's
why
something
does
wrong?
why I don't really understand why he has such a unique perspective. Is it because he's older and he's remembering the old world?
I just think there's people like that in the system because like that's how I've
Like,
always
how did
thought
he
as a
slip through, especially when he works in the ministry and he's like part of rewriting the past?
yeah.
I don't know why his mind is so free. It doesn't
No,
explain
because
it.
I just think there's people like that. I can relate to that character because I didn't understand certain things like about black people.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't understand like self hate. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
understand trying to fit in. I didn't understand being ashamed and trying to fit in to places that didn't make sense. Like so I was always a rebel in that sort of sense. I
Mm.
was like, the system isn't for us. Like why are we trying to be accepted here? Like amongst
Mm.
ourselves we do beautiful things amongst
Mm.
each other. Why are we trying to like uplift something that is not good for us?
Mm.
That's why I always used to think. So but a lot of other black people didn't think like that. And then I
Mm.
came to find rebellious thinking black people are kind of a minority, and you
Mm.
had to kind of seek them out in secret societies. You had to
Mm.
go to different places and then be like, oh, okay, so this is where all the black people are that think like me are.
Mm.
Like we're all hidden away in these little meetings.
Yeah,
Have
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so
Which
like
happens in the
yeah,
book as
so
well.
in yeah,
Yeah.
so in the book, so when Winston finally bumps into O'Brien and O'Brien gives
Mm.
him a hint that there's like someone else out there that thinks like him,
Yeah.
like it gives him that little bit of hope that okay, I'm not crazy.
Mm.
Which like people with rebellious thoughts they kind of need. They need that confirmation that yeah, what I'm seeing, other people can see it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, for sure.
yeah, and then so when he gets the hope with O'Brien that like oh yeah, I'm gonna get the answers that I need.
Mm.
Like yeah, that's so. I just think people are born with being able to see what everyone else can't see, so they're kind of
Mm.
just like a special group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they just manifest themselves in society as like secret societies and stuff.
Yeah.
Because even the system that we must live in, it must have been a small group of people that have been able to see, yeah, this is how we can control the world and
Mm.
executed the system. And then like
Yeah.
no one else is going to be able to see what we see.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think it's just kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Like even those in power would have been a minority at some
Yeah.
point in their
Yeah.
thinking, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's true. What do you think about his relationship with Julia? Do you feel like it added to the book? Did
Yeah, I think it was
yeah,
needed because it brought in like the humane side
that's true.
of him as a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then finding love, and yeah, I just thought like that was like a nice touch to the book to have like where because they're trying to erase all thoughts and feelings and love. And
Yeah.
I think in this society, a lot of that is happening with like corporate and capitalism.
Mm.
They're trying to make the purity of love a capitalist thing.
Yeah,
Like,
it should be about marriage. It
yeah,
should be about children. It needs to follow these set standards.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's null.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, love is very superficial nowadays. And like within the book, for him to find love within a kind of like such a rigid system of, yeah, you can't,
Yeah.
everything
And
is
to
done
do
like
things for
this.
pleasure and to do
Yeah,
things out of kindness,
yeah.
you
And they
know.
had to sneak around in the gutter to
Yeah, literally.
to to do loving, like just to be like what we would consider normal love.
Yeah.
They had to like sneak around. And yeah, I liked
Mm.
that element of the book, is like how
Mm.
like in the future he saw that like pure love is
Yeah.
gonna be erased. And like even like with us, like they're kind of like computerizing love. They're making it like,
Mm.
yeah, tick these boxes.
Mm.
If you
Mm.
guys match with these boxes, we'll match you together.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
very, it's very computerized now. Like
Mm.
it's not like the natural feelings
Yeah.
of love that you get nowadays. Like people kind of like, I don't know, they prioritize what shouldn't really be prioritized when it comes to love
Yeah.
and relationships. I liked that aspect of the book. So I think that part of the book was quite like futuristic in terms of like at the time, because I think back
Mm.
then everything would have just been like meet a husband, meet a wife, and like family, and
Mm.
like there was set roles
Yeah, especially
for
because she
like
was so
men.
young
Yeah,
and he was a lot older, and he talks about his varicose veins and
yeah,
all the pain he's got. And the fact that she just loved and accepted
yeah,
him, no, she didn't want children out of him. She
yeah,
wasn't thinking of a game plan, like, right, how can I trap this
yeah,
man? It was
yeah. Just
really
pure
just,
love.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was so innocent and
yeah,
vulnerable.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
yeah.
Um,
Wait, so who was? What character did you most relate to in the book?
yeah, I think Winston as well. So I first read the book when I did jury duty like 11 years ago. And I just remember being like doom and gloom in the waiting room, just rhymed.
Mm,
Just literally just thinking, oh, this book is just. At the time, I was thinking about it more in like a criminal sense because I'd just been coming in and out of the courtroom, and I
yeah,
was just thinking about the injustice and the crimes, what they consider crimes. I was thinking about it from like a criminology kind of perspective, and I was just really shocked at the time about mainly just about the fact that you could kind of be reprimanded for something you've thought,
mm,
for a different action. Like there was one point where like I think Winston wanted to follow Julia, but even to follow somebody and go in a different direction to how he would normally go home would
mm,
cause suspicion.
yeah,
And it's just that level of surveillance and that level of like monitoring. I just really just found it really scary and
yeah. But to be
it,
honest, 11 years ago we weren't in what we're in now, where like the
true.
surveillance is kind of normal now. The
Yeah.
thought police is normal
So
in
maybe
terms
that's
of
why I
social
find it,
media.
yeah,
Yeah,
so scary.
yeah.
Especially
So
being in a
but
courtroom
but
environment
then it's
reading
still
it.
it's even scarier now reading it now, as because I've just read it recently.
Mm.
It's that all of that's been implemented within 10 years,
Yeah.
and no one's even questioning it.
Yeah, because I think also the smartest thing that's happened is that they've put devices in our hands to
Yeah,
give us this illusion of control that we
yeah,
can record and surveil
yeah,
and kind of capture every moment.
yeah,
But it's also while we're doing that and distracted with what we can capture, like we're also being,
yeah,
recorded and
yeah,
everything. So I think they were very clever in how they've done that.
yeah.
But yeah, your question was about the character, and it was definitely I yeah, so definitely O'Brien and
Winston.
Winston's relationship. No,
Oh,
but like
oh,
the way that I think O'Brien kind of brought something out of Winston. He was like a kind of catalyst for him. He was almost someone he admired,
mm.
and even when he was torturing him, he kind of seemed like he kind of admired him a bit
Yeah, but I think they're from the same.
because
They're
he
from
was
the
like, "I know
same.
what you're thinking."
Yeah, they. I think they're from the
Um,
same. Like O'Brien was Winston
yeah,
before Winston.
before, yeah,
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 so
yeah,
and he's deep into
yeah,
the acceptance of the brotherhood now. He probably
yeah,
got tortured before and is doing it
doing
to
the same
Winston.
thing. Yeah,
It's
hundred
like,
percent.
yeah, you need to come round because he
Mm.
was, yeah, the way they even interacted, and he like to me when I was reading it, it seemed like he was like a double agent getting ready to indoctrinate him into the secret society
How
that's gonna
come?
save them from Big Brother.
Yeah. How come do you think Winston never like chose suicide, which is a very popular option in the book?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it like a willy nilly thing, but generally, like, I wonder why he just wait. He kept saying, "I'm waiting for the bullet to the back of the head," but
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think he was just willing to play it out to the end and see like yeah, he wasn't really
but
willing
if you
to.
don't choose those extreme measures, you're kind of
You can't fight it if you give
accepting.
suicide though.
No, but I wonder that. Okay, how am I phrasing this? I think that he knew that, like with any torture, it's gonna get the better of him,
Mm,
and the only choice you have is to, I think, even was it Charrington, that to die with your own thoughts and your own mind being like pure to yourself.
mm,
And I think he just knew that without that choice he would be corrupted.
mm,
um so I basically think, I'm saying, I think he kind of gave up willingly, more
mm,
so than being tortured.
mm,
Like, the torturing was awful, and definitely, he reached his very lowest when he was like, "Oh, do it to Julia. I don't want it. I don't want this." But I think he knew that without choosing, making that choice, because that's what it means sometimes to be an activist. You have to sometimes put your life on the line.
yeah.
You know. But yeah.
But it's life on your line to be killed, not to kill yourself. Yeah,
Well,
because there was even like that. Yeah, the quote that um the quote that I took from the book, which was the most like telling for me, is about like Winston's fight. In that it was like, I'll read it. The Brotherhood cannot be wiped out because it is not an organization in the ordinary sense. Nothing holds it together except an idea which is indestructible. You will never have anything to sustain you except the idea. You will get no comradeship and no encouragement. When finally you are caught, you will get no help. We never help our members. At most, when it is absolutely necessary that someone should be silenced, we are occasionally able to smuggle a razor blade into the prisoner's cell. You will have to get used to living without results and without hope. You will work for a while, you will be caught, you will confess, and then you will die. And those are the only results that you will ever see. There is no possibility that any perceptual change will ever happen within our lifetime. We are the dead. So the people that are fighting are
yeah.
already dead. Like the
But when
system
he was
is
tortured,
indestructible.
he didn't confess. He wasn't as like vehement with his confessions that they would have just killed him.
Mm,
He was kind of like questioning, having a conversation, asking questions about, like, is Big Brother real? He wasn't just saying, if he had just said, "I don't believe in Big Brother, I never will," they would have shot him in the head, I
yeah.
think. But he never came with that energy. He was always
Mm,
just like, he was more of an intellectual, like, what is it? I don't know. Like, what is it about the Brotherhood? What is it
mm,
about Big Brother? Like, did you torture Julia? Like, he was asking all these questions,
mm.
and he wasn't coming at it with the energy of like, I'm this rebellious
Yeah. So you're
person.
saying he should have just went in there and just
Yeah, and
yeah,
just recited his journal and been like, I'll
and then
never
got
believe
killed.
2 + 2 is 5. I'll
Oh
never
yeah.
believe.
Yeah, he gave him. I think
Yeah.
that was just giving power to the system, the strength of the
Mm,
system. It's the representation of it. But
yeah.
then, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he didn't commit suicide. Yeah,
I
like,
think it's because of O'Brien. I think it's because he's so enamored with him.
mm,
He's trying to understand how he got that way. And
mm,
I'm gonna digress a bit. So there's this film that I like. It's called The Vanishing. It's a really old '90s film. And this guy,
he's 90s old.
well, it's got Kiefer Sutherland and Sandra Bullock in it. They've not done a film together, so before this. But basically, it's a good film. And this guy, he loses his wife. She goes missing, and then the person who's tortured and killed his wife gets him on the hook the
Mm.
man who's looking for his wife, and says, "I'm gonna tell you what happened to her." And the
Mm.
whole way through the film, he's going through all the things she went through. So she's she gets her tire punctured. She gets put into she gets trapped in a room. He gets trapped in a room, and the whole time he's like, "I just want to know what she went through."
Mm.
He's willingly going through the torture. Then he ends up, spoiler alert, he ends up in a coffin, buried alive, and he finally then knows what happened to her.
Mm.
But he had been led that whole way, and he could have at any point called the police, set up a trap. He could have just been like, "You know what, this is enough. I've seen enough. Like, I know this creepy guy at the end of the phone is the one who killed her. I've got my kind of composure from that." And I think there was something about that with Winston. Like, he just wanted to know, Brian, like, you wrote the book, you sung the songs, like, you and I were like this, and we had that alliance, but something has flipped you.
Mm.
And I think he was so enamored with finding out,
Yeah.
how did it get to this, you know?
Yeah, I think you might be
So
right, to be honest.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think he wanted to know to the very end,
Yeah.
until I think there was one point where they started feeding him again.
Mm.
So they were starving him. It's
Mm.
very like psychological, like breakdown of somebody, where you kind of starve them out, and then as they get more and more desperate, you start to feed them, but wean them back on your ideas, and
Yeah.
that kind of like reward thing starts to happen in the brain, where you're just like, okay, the more I comply, the more I eat. Look at my. They make you look at yourself,
Yeah.
see how much weight you've lost, see how you're deteriorating, um, and then he started to wake up, and his first thoughts were like, oh yeah, 2 plus 2 is 5, and um, like, maybe things aren't so bad, and
Yeah.
like he started coming around, and
Yeah.
I forgot what the other saying that he said as well when he started to come around, but yeah, so like, I think he just so wanted to know, how did this happen to you, that he ended up being caught up in it, as
Mm.
opposed to being the rebellious person that I thought I met at the beginning of the book, who would have just sung and said, I don't believe in this, and I remember what it was like before, and I don't admit that we're at war with Eurasia. Like, we haven't always been at war with them. I know for a fact, because I was part of it, erasing the history. Like, I thought he was going to come with that energy.
Mm.
So yeah, it was
Mm.
interesting.
He gave into the system.
Yeah, and Julia gave in as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that they had a compatibility about, because they
Mm.
both didn't give in. They gave each other up,
Yeah.
but they didn't give in.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, what would you give it? Wait, what would you give it out of 5?
Um, I'll give it a 4 overall.
Mm,
Yeah.
a 4's good.
Yeah.
Mm.
It is, even though I struggled to read it. Like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
in the
it took me
middle.
a long while to
Yeah,
kind of,
it's quite repetitive in times at times as well.
yeah,
Like, some concepts are just drilled in
yeah.
over and
It was
over.
hard to read, but then like overall,
Mm.
looking like, yeah, it was a good book. Like, just in the concepts and in terms of how a system is all conquering and powerful. I liked that, and then I liked the way that he was one of the rebellious people in the system, and he had to give in the end. He was seeking out other people. I just liked
Mm.
just like
Yeah,
how he wanted to know the truth. Like, because there's a lot of people, they just want to seek the truth,
yeah,
and I think it was just the innocence of seeking the truth when
yeah.
you know you're living a lie, but you can't prove it. I just liked that sort of concept.
Yeah, no, definitely he was a truth seeker throughout.
Yeah.
I would have given it 5 out of 5, but then I got offended when I found out that one of the Big Brother's motto is to like abolish the sexual pleasures of women,
Oh.
get rid of the orgasm. It's only about making children. That's the only time, and it needs to be like agreed up front. Like that whole
All
thing.
transactional.
Yeah, that whole. It just, I think
It touched the
especially
feminist nerve in you.
it did, like, especially what's happening now with like Roe v. Wade, and it happening in America. Like, it's just
Mm.
it's just so controlling, and it's scary.
Mm.
It's scary to see the narrative go down that way in
Mm.
terms of, okay, we've got control now, let's restrict women even more,
Mm.
you know, because just because we can. And
Mm.
that really did touch a nerve with me. So yeah, I think I gave it a 4 as well. This time when I read it, and also when I first read it, and I still have yet to watch the film.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna watch the film adaptation. Maybe next time I'll give a little update on how I found it compared to the book.
Yeah. All right. So our second, shall we let them know what our second book club book is?
Oh yeah, what did we choose
Do
again?
you know what it is yet? Do you remember?
No, you have to
What?
remind me.
Keisha the Skate.
Oh yeah, Keisha the Skate. Yeah. I didn't
It
sure
might be a
if
bit
it
more
was that.
light-hearted. It might be a bit more light-hearted. Keisha the Skate,
I don't
but
think so. I
yeah.
don't think, because from what I've read initially, I think it'll get quite deep. Reading it as an adult, though,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, as an adult reading
Yeah.
it, I think it'll be
All
quite
right.
deep.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna go back to that one. Read that one. That's our second book club episode. So you can something for you to look forward to.
Yeah, join us as well if you've not read it or you
Yeah.
want to reread it.
Yeah. If you're not, yeah, reread it, and I mean, read it. Wait for the podcast to come
Yeah,
out. Then yeah, give your thoughts on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for joining us. I'm Aries.
And I'm Gems.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.